didn't.
Alright. So, today's lesson is going to be on marker, dealing with Rule 18. Our objective for today is to gain knowledge of mark rounding rules and to utilize them in a race situation. So we use rules when navigating the race course in order to establish who has the right of way in particular situations. Just to review some of the rules, the more basic rules, before we move on to Rule 18, which is more advanced. We're going to go over some of the ones you have learned in Whitesail and in Bronze. So for today's lesson, we're going to be starboard and port is going to be an important rule. So starboard is the boat in green, and port is the boat in red. Now, if this situation arose and these two boats were to cross, but if one didn't avoid the other, there would be a collision. Who has the right of way?
Starboard.
Yeah, starboard. So starboard has the right of way. That means port has to give way. So in that situation, they could tack beneath the starboard boat or duck below them and continue on going to the right side of the course. We're going to need to be able to establish who has the right of way around a mark later on, and we're going to need to be able to establish where the ley lines are. So, can anyone tell me where the ley lines of these marks are? Steph?
The triangle, the two lines coming off the triangle.
Yeah, so
yeah,
these lines, so does anyone know what point of sail you're going to be sailing in order to reach that ley line?
I could name one, but it probably wouldn't be right. Broad reach, close reach.
Close haul.
Close haul.
So that was pretty close. Close. Yeah, so you're going to be sailing on close haul towards the mark. Something to talk about too is proper course. Proper course is the way in which you deem as the quickest route around the course. So for someone sailing downwind, it's going to be towards the next mark, or in certain circumstances it might require some movement, deviating from a straight downwind course. So when Rule 18 applies. So marks are pretty important features on the race course. They're major points of conversion because all boats have to go around at some point in time. So when Rule 18 applies. Rule 18 applies when boats are required to leave a mark on the same side and at least one of them has entered the zone. So as you can see on this teaching aid of science, this zone is marked out in white. The zone is 3 boat lengths in width, so 1, 2, 3, and it goes around each mark. Now in real life, these marks would be much further apart and the phones wouldn't overlap, but in order to keep it on the paper, teaching aid of science, it's going to have to be like this. So, yeah. Jibing mark room. So Rule 8.2. So when boats are overlapped, which is this overlapped or is this overlapped?
That's the second.
The second one is overlapped. So when boats are overlapped, the outside boat shall give the inside boat room. So that just means when two boats enter in the zone, the outside boat, so the one furthest outside that is overlapped, has to give the other one room. So room to round the mark and continue on its course upwind. So, as we have discussed, clear ahead is when the transom of the boats are separate, and overlap is when the line from the transom of the inside boat is crossing through the other boat. Now, depending on the angles, this can change. So, if two boats are coming in like this transom line is going to go way out here. So he's going to have established room over anyone in this zone. So anyone here who's overlapped, he's got right away in. Now if he closes that as he enters the zone, that means he still has room on these people. But if you're this person, and as you enter the zone, you close so the line is in front of that, you have right away with this guy, now he has to give way to you.
It's tricky.
It is tricky, so there's a little bit of tactics involved there, and you can use those to your advantage on the race course, so we're going to be talking about after. So a boat may need to jibe in the circle in order to, in the 3-boat length circle at the leeward mark, in order to maintain its course. And so that means that this boat, if it's coming down on starboard, it's going to have to jibe in order to make that mark, so the sail doesn't hit the mark. Yeah, the boat must the boat who is, that was it's coming later, so I jumped ahead of myself. So the boat that enters the circle with an overlap, if that overlap is broken, the other boat still has to give room in that situation. So if this inside boat had overlap when they entered the circle, and this guy suddenly speeds up, he still can't take room on this guy because when they entered the circle, he did not have room. So he has to avoid this person and allow him to, or her, to round the mark appropriately. Reasonable doubt is something you're going to run into when you're sailing on the course. If the person claims to have gained or lost overlap at the last second when entering the circle, it is presumed, in a jury case, it is presumed they're not. So if you take it to a protest and say, oh, I gained it within the last boat length, they're going to assume that didn't happen, or lost it in the last boat length, they're going to assume that didn't happen, and it's just who had the right of way all the way downwind. Okay. So when tacking or jibing, so I jumped ahead of myself before, but now we're catching up to my previous statements. So if two boats are approaching the mark on opposite tacks, so this is now when we're going upwind and when we're going to be using the lay lines, and one changes tack, she must give mark room if overlapped, and it shall not interfere with the course of the other boat in order for them to sail above close hauled. So to talk about the first one, to give mark room if overlapped. So that's talking about if two boats are sailing upwind and they enter the zone on starboard as they approach the mark on the ley line. If this person, the lower boat, needs more room to make that mark, the other person has to give them space, and then they can around the mark, or with them, as long as they don't interfere. The other is slightly more complicated and more risky situation for the person on port. So the person on port is approaching the mark and has entered into the 3-boat length circle. The person on starboard is already fetching the mark on the ley line. This red boat has some options and things it can't do. If it thinks it's really fast and it can get ahead of this guy and not interfere with him, then he's in the clear. But if he does interfere, he has, again, two options like we talked about before anywhere else in the race course to avoid the starboard tack boat. He can tack beneath, which in this case is going to mean he's going to run into the mark. So that's probably not going to be his choice of action. So he's probably going to go beneath him and tack around after.
That sucks.
Yeah, it sucks because you lose a lot of space to that guy, which is why coming from the left side of the course is more risky than coming from the right side of the course. But say in this situation, the starboard boat is well above the ley line. They're not on close haul, they might even be on a beam reach or close reach, so that means they're either going crosswind at beam reach or not as close to the wind as close hauled. And this port boat has entered the circle at the same time. So these boats are approaching the mark, and this guy's well above it. This guy, according to Rule 18.3, can tack inside as long as this person is not forced above close hauled. So that is a good situation if the person has overstood the ley line, which can happen if they tack onto it really, really far outside, on the right side of the course. You might end up too low, or you might end up way too high. Either way, you're going to be sailing a lot more distance. So, when you're going downwind, this is what I was talking about before, is jibing within the 3 boat length circle.